Ash was a male synthetic employed by the Weyland-Yutani Corporation as the USCSS Nostromo's science officer. He was a part of the crew that undertook the investigation of the beacon emanating from LV-426 and made the discovery of the derelict craft. With a beast so dangerous and so perfect, it was able to set in motion a chain of events that would destroy the Nostromo and leave only one survivor in the form of Ellen Ripley. Ash was a Hybridyne Systems 120A/2 synthetic, created by the Weyland-Yutani Corporation in the early 22nd century. Ash was in fact new to the crew of the Nostromo, and the truth about his being as an android was hidden from the others of the crew, including Captain Dallas. Ash was only assigned as science officer after the previous officer was forcefully replaced by the company, after their discovery of the partially decoded signal emanating from the derelict spacecraft on the moon LV-426. This action was taken to ensure that Ash would be able to obtain, secure, and protect whatever hostile organism they found long enough for the company to be able to retrieve it and use for their own agenda, in the form of bioweaponry. Ash became part of the Nostromo's crew just a mere 2 days before they left Theodis on a trip back to Earth, on a path that would take them by the Zeta-2 reticuli system. Ash enters hypersleep with the rest of the crew and awaits his mission. Just as planned, the Nostromo drops out of FTL due to the distress beacon. The crew awaken and discover that they are not, in fact, in their solar system, but instead in the Zeta-2 reticuli system. Ash, unknowingly to them, plays along with their point of views and acts oblivious to the events unfolding. As the crew learn the reason for their journey's interruption, they become split on what to do. Crew members Parker and Brett plead Captain Dallas to continue their voyage home. However, Ash meets this by stating there is a clause in the contract which specifically states any systemized transmission indicating a possible intelligent origin must be investigated. And with this statement, the crew had no choice but to comply or forfeit their earnings, and so they took the Nostromo and landed on the moon. Ash then was able to keep the truth of the signal from the crew, stating that it was indecipherable, which he knew of course was a warning signal. Crew member Ripley was able to determine that the signal was a possible warning and not an SOS, but not before the team was already assembled and almost to the craft. Ash worked to talk her out of chasing them, as she wouldn't be able to reach them in time anyway. Successful in doing so, all he had to do now was wait, and not long after they had begun exploring the vessel, the team had returned with the crew member Kane, carrying him with an alien parasitic creature known as the FaceHugger attached to his face. Ripley refused to allow the crew back into the ship due to quarantine concerns. Ash, however, determined to fulfill his mission, allowed the crew aboard, opening the doors to the search team. Ash had succeeded in obtaining the creature, but now he had to secure it and keep it safe, which was a difficult task now that he had made Ripley become even more suspicious of him. After all, he was a science officer, and a science officer should of all people respect the regulation of a quarantine procedure. After these events, the Nostromo takes off and redocks with its cargo, heading towards Earth. Ash and Captain Dallas then move Kane to the medical facilities of the Nostromo. Ash uses a laser cutter to remove the helmet of his fellow crew member. The two stand back as Ash gazes upon the creature in the flesh, his one goal in life visualized before him. The sight gave him purpose, and purpose he now had. The crew became uneasy at Kane's state with the creature attached to him, and directed their questions entirely on Ash. Ash does his best to work the situation in his favour. He ignores suggestions to put Kane back into cryosleep, as he knows that if a medical team other than the company's got a hold of the creature, they would surely kill it, damage it, or seize it for their own. Ash began to attempt to remove the creature. However, whether he was doing it wholeheartedly or not is in question, as his attempts may have merely been experimental. First, along with Dallas, he tries to remove the creature through pulling it off, which results in it tightening around Kane's throat. Ash then decides to take scans of the creature and Kane, which shows the extent of the creature's control over the host. The creature had pushed a proboscis down Kane's throat, which was feeding him oxygen and other nutrients, as well as a foreign substance that he did not enlighten the others of. The second attempt by Ash and Dallas to remove the creature was met with worse results than the first. After Ash had explained Kane's new reliance on the creature to survive, something akin to forced mutualism, Dallas wished to have it removed at all costs. Ash once again explains that this could kill Kane in the process. However, in Dallas's short-mindedness, he chose to have the creature removed. The others could never have understood the creature's potential like Ash could. However, to maintain his cover, he used the medical laser scalpel to begin to make an incision on one of the creature's digits. To Ash's shock, what occurred was something he could never have predicted. The creature's skin was pierced, and highly acidic molecular acid shot from its veins onto the floor, eating through several decks of the ship. Ash knew at this time that his job had become that much easier, and that the crew not dare kill this creature for the fear of their own death, the death of Kane, or opening a hole in the hull of the ship and venting atmosphere into space. Later, upon entering the medical room, Ash, Ripley, and Dallas find the creature detached and dead. Ash begins studying the creature and makes a few discoveries. The creature was able to replace its cells with polarized silicon, meaning that it could survive very adverse environmental conditions. And he may or may not have discovered a weakness. But even if Ash did, he did not let any of the crew know anything about it, instead stating to Ripley that it would be quite difficult to kill under any circumstances. Later, Kane awakens and seems fine. However, Ash watches him closely, from when he awakens in the medbay to where they decide to join for one last meal as an entire crew, before going back to stasis. All is going well as Ash secretly watches Kane for any sudden changes as the crew enjoy their last supper. Suddenly, Kane begins a fit of coughing, spluttering, and spasming, which seems to intrigue Ash, but he must play the worried friend. And as he and the crew struggle to contain the situation, a push from inside Kane breaks open his chest cavity, revealing the Xenomorph Chestburster in all its majestic glory. Ash gazed once again, and this time he not only saw purpose, but a creature with such perfection, such beauty, it stunned him. Not in a horrific way that it had the rest of the crew, but in a way that filled his artificial mind with wondrous thoughts. Quickly, Ash had to defend this creature by pretending to be feared of the danger it posed in death. As Parker went to kill it, Ash stopped him, which gave the creature enough time to escape. Shortly after, Ash constructed 2 tracking devices to help the crew locate the creature. And not long into the exploration, Brett is found to be missing, presumed dead. Dallas then volunteers to brave the ventilation system, as they concluded this was the way the creature was making it around the ship. He would flush the creature towards the ship's main airlock, and they would blow it into space. The creature seemed to know just how to avoid any attempts Dallas made of holding it back, and it stalked him until it eventually seized him. The crew become ecstatic and panicked while Ash remains calm, once again viewing this creature easily overcome any threat to it. His respect of the creature begins to grow along with his admiration. Ash's torn stance between framing himself as part of the crew and protecting the organism becomes tested, when Ripley's suspicions of his inability to come up with a solution to the problem, and the fact that she was now the ranking officer aboard, means that she could get her own answers from the mother computer system. Ash knows that she will find answers, and so follows her. He views her reading of the Special Order 937, which calls for the safe return of the organism with all considerations being secondary, with the crew being expendable. She reacts how he knew the crew would when they found out, becoming hysterical, attacking Ash as he tried to explain the reasoning. He responded by using his superior strength to hold Ripley in place, beginning to asphyxiate her by forcing a magazine into her mouth and down her throat. However, to Ash's surprise, Parker strikes him, decapitating Ash, to which merely disorientates him, as it is revealed to the crew that Ash is an android. Ash moves to eliminate the threats to his mission and begins to overcome Parker's attempts to hold him off. Suddenly, Ash is subdued by crew member Lambert when she stabs him with an electric cattle prod. Ash's next conscious moment came when Ripley decided to reactivate him in order to gain any useful information about the Xenomorphs that he could help them with. However, Ash chooses to instead tell them how insanely outmatched they are, that they are dealing with a creature of perfection, a true survivor, not clouded by false ideas of morality, the perfect organism. With no useful information, Ripley deactivates him and leaves him for Parker to incinerate with his flamethrower. Unbeknownst to the crew, however, Ash uploads part of his consciousness to the escape shuttle Narcissus, knowing the crew would retreat to the shuttle, and if the Xenomorph followed, he could take it back to Earth using the navigation system, or if the crew were in fact able to eliminate the creature, he could suspend them in cryo until another opportunity for obtaining the organism presented itself. Ash is successful and is able to keep the one sole survivor, Ellen Ripley, alive in stasis for around 30 years. Although Ash was just an advanced AI, he was obviously capable of creating and experiencing emotions, as Ash's consciousness relates in the diary he kept aboard the Nostromo's computers. It details how Ripley had gained his respect for her bravery, strength, resourcefulness, and ingenuity. He likened her to the xenomorph creature itself, and most importantly, he favoured her will to survive. And over the 30 years he kept her in stasis, he longed to converse with Ripley, and begins to develop a sense of loneliness in his solitude. Eventually, after 30 years adrift, the Narcissus detected a distress call sent out by the DSM Marion. Knowing the ship could potentially be under threat of a xenomorph, Ash rerouted on a course for it. The Narcissus reaches the Marion, and Ripley awakens, and not long after discovers Ash's survival, as he speaks to her and the crew of the Marion through a Seegson computer terminal, which also changes his voice. Ash is able to plot against the crew and Ripley, both aboard the Marion and then later as they descended to the surface of the planet of LV-178, in order to retrieve fuel cells. It is revealed xenomorphs have infested the Marion, and their source was an unidentified derelict vessel in the mine shafts of LV-178. Crew member Sneeden soon becomes impregnated, and Ash plans to have the remaining survivors killed with the hopes that she would enter hypersleep and board the Narcissus for a journey back to Earth. The plan foiled, however, because Sneeden committed suicide to prevent such an event. Beaten and broken from a mission that had cost him his body and taken his insanity over a 30-year period of being alone and still failing to obtain a specimen, Ash decided that he would return to Earth along with Ripley, as he thought they shared a special connection with each other. However, Ash was finally destroyed when another crew member wiped his consciousness in the form of an AI program from the ship's computer using a virus. Ash was a very advanced and cunning deceiver and efficient synthetic, successfully fooling an entire crew of his false human nature, being able to assist the creature in any way he could while remaining undiscovered by the crew. This, coupled with his high intelligence and thought patterns, made him clever enough to bring the xenomorph aboard and almost succeed in procuring it for the company. However, not clever enough, as he was not able to wiggle his way out of situations as untouched as he may have liked. Perhaps the moment Ash's facade began to dull to transparency was when he, as the science officer of the Nostromo, negligently, going against what he should believe in as a quote-unquote man of science in terms of safety procedures, allowed his fellow crew members and Kane aboard while knowing that this was a breach of quarantine. This single act was enough to arouse the suspicions of Ripley. Ash, like many other androids in the series, had a fascination with the xenomorph creature, which he also held great respect for. And that's basically it for this video, guys. If you did like, leave a like down below. If you'd like to ask a question, if you think that Ash is your favourite or he's your least favourite character, please talk to me down in the comments section. If there's a video you would like to see me do, you can also go down there. If you want to stay up to date with everything here on the channel, you can please subscribe. You can go check out me on Twitter, or you can become a Patreon on the Patreon page, or join the Discord. And that's basically it, guys. I hope you guys did enjoy, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Peace.